This is a board you guys have been asking for. It's one of those boards, one of those top tier Z690 boards. In this video, we're going to take a little bit of a look at the ASUS ROG Maximus Z690 Hero. So without further ado, let's roll that intro. As usual with our motherboard videos, these videos are not reviews. They're just overviews so we can take a bit of a look at what's on the board, what comes in the box and all that jazz. And as a bit of a spoiler alert, this board has a lot of features. It's got a couple things that we haven't seen before, and there's a lot of stuff in the box. So without further ado, let's just get cracking. I'll stop talking. All right, ladies and gents, let's take a bit of a look at the ROG Maximus Z690 Hero, one of the top tier Z690 boards. But first of all, let's get the motherboard out of the way so we can take a bit of a closer look at everything that comes with this board. First up, we've got an ROG Hyper M.2 card. This has got two M.2 slots on it. One is PCIe Gen 5, one's PCIe Gen 4. We'll take a bit of a closer look at this in a moment though. There's also a USB stick, so there's no disc for the drivers or anything like that. It's all on this USB flash drive. All right, let's get that M.2 card out of the way so we can take a closer look at all this stuff. There's a little card that comes in all these ROG boards that says, "Get ready to rock the gaming world with ROG. As a member of the elite gaming community, it's time to level up with Armory Crate." And this is basically just saying like demo drivers and stuff. Anyway, there's a sheet of stickers for those people who want to use these. I don't know why they still include these with motherboards, so you know, whatever. There's also the ROG Maximus Z690 Hero user guide. This basically walks you through what everything is on the board, where everything is, and how to get yourself up and running. There's also this included GPU support bracket. This is a nice little addition. It's good to see that they include these, considering those ROG GPUs are very, very saggy. There's also this antenna for the built-in Wi-Fi 6E and the Bluetooth as well. There's a bunch of spare M.2 clips. I'll show how this works again, but basically you don't need to use any screws for the M.2s on this board. There's also some RGB adapter cables. This is pretty standard stuff here. This is for legacy purposes really, as well as this little block. This block converts all of your front panel wiring for the case lights and switches into a single block, so it's easy to plug in. There's some SATA or SATA cables for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives. And lastly, there is the ROG lanyard / keyring. This is pretty standard. This will make you run faster if you put it on your keychain. So if you put it in your pocket and then you go for a run, you will run faster. It's just science, guys. And the motherboard itself, let's get it out of the way. We don't need to unsheath this one because it's in a bit of a plastic container. We're going to rip the board out so we can take a closer look at the ROG Maximus Z690 Hero. But first, let's visit our friends over at Peel Corp and see what they've been up to, see how they're feeling, and got some pretty solid peely boys going on here with this board. Ooh la la. There's a front panel audio header. There's a 4-pin 12-volt RGB header. There's two 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB headers. There is 3 PWM fan connectors. There's 2 USB 2.0 headers for stuff like your coolers, your RGB controllers, and anything that needs USB 2.0. There's some more PWM fan connectors as well, one for a water pump and one for like obviously not a water pump, but they're just PWM, and the front panel connectors for your lights and all your switches and all that jazz. There's a right angled USB 3.2 header, 6 SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rush drives, another right angle USB 3.2 header, there's a front panel USB Type-C header, there's a 6-pin PCIe power connector for supplemental power. We have seen this in boards before, but there it is, and there's a 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new board. There's some buttons, so there's stuff like the flex key, the power button, the retry button for overclocking, and another 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header. Along the top right hand side of the board, there is a postcode LED screen to help you diagnose your system and 4 more PWM fan connectors. And on the top left, we've got 2 8-pin EPS power connectors to send juice to your brand new 12th gen Alder Lake CPU. In terms of PCIe slots, there's 2 PCIe Gen 5 slots and a PCIe Gen 4 slot. The top slot is a full by 16 size slot. The middle one is a PCIe Gen 5 by 8 slot, which can be used for bifurcation for that storage card. And the bottom slot is a PCIe Gen 4 by 8 slot as well. This board features Intel Z690 chipset, which does not need active cooling. For power delivery on the Maximus Hero, we've got a pretty beefy setup. We've got a 20+ one-phase digital VRM setup with 105 amp power stages. You can see that basically the entire I/O cover is a heatsink, and there is a top heatsink as well, and both are connected via a heat pipe. This looks to be quite an adequate cooling solution for this massive VRM layout. Let's pop open the brand new LGA 1700 socket so you can have a bit of a look at and see what's going on here. It features this new socket, obviously, with 1700 contact pins. It is not backwards compatible with any older generation Intel CPUs. It will only work with Alder Lake 12th gen CPUs. What ASUS has done differently on this board compared to other manufacturers as well is include holes for LGA 1200 so you can use your older coolers without getting any more adapter brackets. And if we flip the board over and take a look at the backside, there's no full cover backplate, and also you can see where those holes are. So they're basically on top of each other, if that makes sense. The hole spacing is also the same as LGA 1366. So if your cooler supports 1366, I can't imagine there being an issue getting it to fit on this board as well. One of the more interesting features with the new ASUS Z690 boards is this little button here, right? What does it do? Well, I'm about to show you. When you press this button, it actually opens up the clip on the top PCIe slot. So if you've got a big GPU in there, you've got a big air cooler in there, and you can't physically get access to push that in, here's a button that does the job for you. Probably one of the best things I've seen in a long time on new motherboards. More of this, please. In terms of RAM support, it supports up to 128 gigs of DDR5 memory at 6400 MHz overclocked. These DDR5 boards are not DDR4 backwards compatible whatsoever. We have got quite a few questions about that, but you can only use DDR5 memory on these boards, unless it's the DDR4 version of a board. Alrighty, let's take off those M.2 heatsinks so I can explain to you guys what's going on with the storage situation on this board. So on the top M.2 slot, this is a PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slot. On the bottom, you've got another PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slot, as well as a PCIe Gen 3 M.2 slot. And much like ASUS's Z590 boards, there are these M.2 clips as well, so you don't need to use screws for your M.2 drives. But for additional storage, ASUS is saying this board has 5 M.2 slots. It's actually got 3, but you need to use this expansion card to get the other 2. But I'll just pull off the heatsink. This has got a massive solid heatsink. It's passively cooled, and you'll notice that this has a full by 16 connector on it as well. Although if you look very closely, it's only wired by 8. Just thought I'd mention that. And as I said earlier, it's got a PCIe Gen 5 M.2 slot, which is the one on the left, and a PCIe Gen 4 M.2 slot, which is the one on the right-hand side. For rear I/O, you've got a clear CMOS button, a BIOS flashback button, an HDMI port. You've got a bunch of USB 3.2 ports. There's 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2, and 7.1 digital surround sound via the built-in audio interface with optical and SPDIF output and an integrated I/O shield. Alright ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this first look and overview of the ASUS ROG Maximus Z690 Hero. Now I want to talk a little bit about a few things that I noticed with this board. One of the coolest new features that I saw on this board that we have never seen before is this top PCIe release button. So you can push this button, it opens up the top slot. Let's see if we can do this again for you live, right? So you press this little button, right? And then you'll see the slot will open up. And this is basically because all these massive GPUs, it's impossible to get your fingers in to open up the slot to pull it out if you need to. So now there's a button to make life easier. I think this button idea should be adopted across every single board from every manufacturer going forward, full stop. This is a brilliant little bit of ingenuity. I do like that quite a bit. Although there's one feature on this board I felt was missing for something in this board's price point, and that is 10 gigabit Ethernet. It's got 2.5 gig. Not sure why it doesn't have 10 gig, considering that the Aorus Master, which is in the same range of specs as this board, has 10 gig Ethernet. Don't understand why ASUS negated that. I know that they probably have it on their higher level boards than this one, but the Master, as I already mentioned, from Aorus is in the same bracket of boards, and that has it. So odd choice there from ASUS. This is one of the boards that we're going to be doing one of our first 12th gen builds with. We've got, I think, 3 planned for launch or something like that. I haven't quite figured out how we're going to find time to do it, but we should be able to do something pretty cool for launch. But if you guys are interested in the price, I did find pricing for this. And this is this is what I want to say again, and I said this in the last ASUS motherboard video we did. We do get reamed by prices in Australia. I don't think the rest of the world quite understands, but if you're wanting to grab this board in US dollars, it's $599 US dollars, and in Australian dollars, it's $1,199. If we do a little bit of a currency conversion, I'll do this on screen for you at the time of filming. You can see how much the $599 equates to in Australian dollars, and then how much we pay in Australia. So there's your answer. You know what? The board's nice, but at $1,200, this should be a fully customizable screen, right?
That's why I was asking what it does
Yeah,
before.
it should just be fully customizable. And that's gonna do it, ladies and gents, but make sure you stick around for some of those cinematic things. I'm your boy Nick with Gear Seekers. You peek, we seek. Let's take a bit of a nice look at it. Just how many times does it take for my walk away? Just how many times does it take for my walk away? Tell me what's so long. Just how many times does it take for my walk away? Tell me what's so long. Just how many times does it take for my walk away? Just how many times does it take for my walk away? Tell me what's so long. Just how many times does it take?